Hello everyone. Today, we're diving into one of the most celebrated chess games in history, the original Immortal Game from 1851. This match even made an appearance in the 1982 film Blade Runner. The contest unfolded in London between Adolf Anderssen, the most dominant player of his time playing white, and Lionel Kieseritzky, handling black. The match opens with pawn to e4 from Anderssen. Kieseritzky answers with pawn to e5. Being a contest from the vintage era, Anderssen advances pawn to f4, the king's gambit. White offers a pawn right away, and, well, black grabs it with pawn takes on f4, stepping into the king's gambit accepted variation. White's bishop comes out to c4, and black skips castling here, opting for the more aggressive queen to h4 check. White's king moves away to f1, giving up castling privileges. In this position, black advances pawn to b5, a fashionable move during that era. Black offers another pawn, attempting to pull white's bishop away from the vulnerable f7 square. White sees it and chooses to grab it with the bishop, no big deal. Black brings out knight to f6, pressuring the e4 pawn. White's knight hops to f3, pushing the queen back as it pulls back to h6. Now white advances pawn to d3, aiming at the f4 pawn and supporting the center. Kieseritzky starts crafting threats, knight to h5. If white overlooks this, the following move is knight to g3, a fork hitting king and rook. And if white captures the knight, black's queen grabs the rook on h1. So white advances knight to h4, stopping the threat. If black pushes forward anyway, it will cost him material since the pawn on g3 would then shield the knight on h4. But Kieseritzky maintains pressure, queen to g5, threatening the knight. White answers steadily with knight to f5. This knight transforms into a crucial piece. Black pushes pawn to c6, compelling white to choose what happens with the bishop. And Anderssen decides. He sacrifices it with pawn to g4, dangling the bishop on b5. If black captures it, the knight on h5 drops. Kieseritzky refuses the bait, knight to f6, pulling the knight back. At this moment, Anderssen appears overcommitted. His pawn on g4 dangles, and his bishop on b5 faces pressure. But white presses on brilliantly. Rook to g1, offering the bishop on b5. Black grabs it with pawn takes on b5, and white advances pawn to h4. The pawns pursue the black queen. The sole escape is queen to g6, as h6 is controlled by the knight. Following queen to g6, white advances pawn to h5, pushing the queen even farther. Queen to g5, white brings queen to f3. Now the pawn on f4 cannot be held onto. Once white grabs it with bishop to f4, black's queen risks getting cornered. Kieseritzky sees the danger and swiftly creates an escape path, opening an emergency route for the queen. Following bishop takes on f4, the queen falls back to f6, threatening the b2 pawn. This menaces the rook on a1 immediately after. So white seals the diagonal with knight to c3.
Here, black develops bishop to c5, threatening the rook on g1, while white launches his counteroffensive with knight to d5. The queen should pull back, but Kieseritzky hungrily grabs the pawn on b2, following his plan. The rook on a1 dangles with check, and the rook on g1 remains threatened. White concludes, who needs rooks when you can assault the king directly? And that king feels uncomfortable. Every piece surrounding him remains inactive on the queen side and the king side, but the queen continues gorging amid the chaos. White advances bishop to d6. Kieseritzky analyzes and understands he cannot capture the bishop. If bishop takes on d6, it's immediate mate. Following knight to f7 check and king to e8 arrives knight to d6, and then checkmate. The king possesses no escape, so capturing that bishop is out of the question. So he refuses it, and funnily enough, despite white's powerful concentration of pieces surrounding the black king, there's no instant mate. so black coolly captures on g1. White advances pawn to e5. This advance severs the black queen from g7, a vital square the knight on f5 has been monitoring all along. Black spots a check and cannot resist. Queen takes on a1 check, grabbing the rook. That wasn't an entirely bad move, but it came too early. White's king only has to step away with king to e2. And now, black confronts a decision. Remarkably, he's ahead 2 rooks and a bishop, yet 1 move from catastrophe. Here, Kieseritzky commits the critical blunder. In this arrangement, black possesses only 1 move that maintains his position: bishop a6. The concept is providing the black king a breathing space on c8. Currently, there's scarcely any room left around him. White's pieces are converging. Instead, black advances knight to a6, attempting to guard c7 so the white knight cannot leap there. But white still possesses the most spectacular sacrifice of the entire match. Knight to g7 check, grabbing the pawn. Black's king is compelled to his sole available square, king d8, and now arrives the finishing blow, queen to f6 check. There's no avoiding the sacrifice. If the queen isn't captured, it's checkmate instantly. Black is forced to grab with the knight on f6, and white executes bishop to e7 checkmate. A spectacular checkmate executed by 3 light pieces. Kieseritzky still technically possessed a whole extra queen, bishop, and 2 rooks on the board, but none of that could rescue his king. This is Romantic period chess at its peak. Material becomes irrelevant when the king faces assault. Development becomes meaningless if your pieces cannot protect. Possessing extra queens and rooks signifies nothing if they're observers to your king's destruction. If you appreciated this legendary work of art, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and contribute your reactions in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and remember, in chess, sometimes you must give up everything to create something truly immortal.